has to be based on a love. For me, the simple way to describe what philosophy does, that philosophy transforms you entirely. Philosophy hunts your ability to think clearly, to write well. So your thinking and analytical skills are developed.
And that kind of deep probing of the way the world is, how we know about it, what we ought to do, I was sold. I just loved it.
There's no shortage of difficulties that we're facing right now, and we need some people with good ideas and with good intentions that can meet some of those challenges.
Right, most people aren't able to take complex ideas about some really esoteric topic and discuss complicated arguments about that topic in a clear way. I certainly couldn't do that the first time I tried, right? So you're gonna get a lot of training and practice and the ability to do that.
I come from Hamilton, Montana, and so it's about an hour away, and never had I read anything by Plato or Aristotle, to say the least, anything of the ancients, and I don't even think philosophy was in my vocabulary, to be honest.
I'm passionate about teaching philosophy to my students because I teach them how to be careful thinkers. I teach them to look into the reasons why they believe what they believe.
When I think of philosophy, I sometimes think of bike maintenance, and when I'm tuning my bike, I have to make sure all the gears are working properly, everything is, at least well oiled. Philosophy really helps me have a clearer mind, clearer ideas. They're more focused. I think philosophy really helps a person get all the junk off, scrape off the rust, and keep the important parts moving.
So the idea here is all of these things that we generally tend to see in an isolated way are really parts and necessarily parts of a larger story, and it's only as part of a larger story, which involves both the social setting and ultimately the history that has brought us to this particular set of values, that we can fully make sense of the particular action.
Eventually, I took a philosophy course here from David Sherman and really found that I enjoyed the material. I thought there were important things that were being discussed, and there were important themes, and you could see how philosophy had really influenced the course of Western culture.
When I went to graduate school, I focused on philosophy of physics. And this is really a combining of philosophical issues and physical issues. So you've got this kind of abstract mathematical framework, and the goal is to figure out what might the world actually be like if this is a true theory, if this mathematical framework accurately represents the world.
So you can imagine that the physicist is someone who is like a piano concert player. He's going to do some hard daily training, highly technical training, to play some very complex pieces. The philosopher of science, of physics, is going to come and learn a few chords, learn to play a few things, but then we'll start dismantling the piano and wonder, how is it that this thing is making sound? So the question I ask myself is that, how is it that science works? What is better about science, about the scientific method, that makes scientific claims better claims than other kinds of claims?
We need to convince each other to take a good critical look at our values and beliefs, because otherwise I'm pretty scared for the future of this country, to be honest, right? And so when you have politicians like Marco Rubio saying we need less people studying philosophy, that really scares me, because it's only through people doing things like studying philosophy and studying the humanities and learning how to think and learning how to be critical of their values that we're going to get through this as a nation and not collapse under the kind of hatred and bigotry that is taking over the political discourse as we speak.
Yeah, I'm not telling you what to think. I'm not sending you home with an assignment which is learn a bunch of facts or accept a series of beliefs. I'm challenging you to think more about the reasons that are behind your beliefs and check whether there aren't any conflict, some problematic conflict within your beliefs.
You're going to have the opportunity to have a lot of discussion with your peers, right? But unlike, say, in a situation in a bar where you're just yelling and screaming at each other about, I think this, I think that, right? You're going to have a professor there teaching you how to have a productive discussion. You go out into the workforce and you're able to listen clearly, digest what you've heard, think about it, and give an intelligent response that's clear and understandable. That's another thing that's going to be a huge asset to you in the workforce.
But the road wasn't always so smooth and easy. I remember when I was a junior and telling my father that I was giving up engineering and that I was going to take a physics degree, but what I really wanted to do was go to grad school in philosophy. And he said, "Ari, you're going to be a failure."
Many people don't understand what it is to do research in philosophy. And I understand why. It's because it's not in the news, it's not in the magazines or anything. There's not a Scientific American or a Nature that corresponds to research in philosophy, just as you have in the sciences. But people do research in the humanities, and it's important work. So what I do in my research is to look into philosophy of science.
The great thing about philosophy is that it's an ideal major for a huge range of grad programs, right? And also for a huge range of different fields of employment, because really the main thing you're learning to do in philosophy is think clearly, write clearly, speak clearly, right? And that's going to serve you extremely well in just about any other thing that you would do.
Very applicable to studying nonprofit ethics and understanding logic for programming and understanding how to write policy.
It was really something that was based in complete ignorance of what philosophy was. And what I should have told my dad then are the kinds of things I know about philosophy now. And here's a current fact, that the average mid-career salary for someone with a BA in philosophy is $85,000 a year. As it turns out, philosophy can be really practical. As one reporter put it a few years ago, she had an article entitled, "I think, therefore I earn." She was right about that.
We all believe more in our doctor than the random guy who gives you some health advice on the street. Why is that? What is it about science that gives scientific claims a better epistemic status? That's what I'm asking in my research. And the point is that the simple answers don't fly very far. You could say, oh, that's easy. It's because scientific claims are true. They tell us the truth about the world. But wait a minute. It would be foolish to think that we finally have this truth now after 20 centuries of falsehoods. Now, it's not the case that just because I said that I want to go all the way the other side and say anything goes.
I take it to be an extremely important skill in today's world to be able to take a look at what do I believe and why do I believe it? Am I really right to believe it? And a lot of people are out there that are really confident of some things that they haven't really thought about at all, right? And it's kind of scary, to be honest.
The ultimate good in human life shouldn't be something that someone else can take from you simply by changing their mind about you, right? It should be something that once you achieve it is firm and solid and that it's your own. It's not in someone else's hands.
You don't go into philosophy for any other reason other than the fact that you love philosophy and you want to hone those skills, clear thinking, questioning your assumptions, not taking things at face value, writing clearly, and all these skills come handy in everyday life and every other discipline. And philosophers have gone out there to be good in so many other things, and I think you're never a loser when it comes to studying philosophy, whatever path you decide to go into.
It's been really valuable to some of my relationships. When you come up against people with contradicting values that you have, it's really good to have an open mind. Like, that's what we all strive for, is having an open mind. And philosophy can definitely help with that.
So I want to be able to define science, to characterize, to understand what science is in a way that accommodates for the possibility that our theories are mostly false, but still are the best epistemic tool we have right now to make decisions.